accreditation and moving to international accreditation based on self-evaluation that you have performed yourself, an assessment of the gap, and then visits from external evaluators. That's a big change in the region throughout with the support. And in the context of PASET, you have participated in regional benchmarking that has provided some useful results first for you conducting this process of assessing with common indicators where you stand compared to other centers, other universities in your countries, and comparing yourself with universities in other countries in the region. And a significant focus on the institutional impact of the ACE centers. A significant departure also in terms of governance. We've seen several centers or several host universities moving towards open competitive selection of departments heads, of institutional leaders, a practice that was not always there in the countries, in the institutions where the center operates. Nigeria has really come out as a leader in terms of developing and using the NREN, but it's not the only country. And here, that's a positive side benefit of the COVID pandemic, of course, because whether we wanted it or not, whether we liked it or not, from one week to the other, from one day to the other, in many cases, campuses had to close down, and not all of them were able to switch easily to online teaching and learning, but this has definitely accelerated the digital transformation of not only the centers, but your host universities and sometimes the entire country. It's very significant to see the change of mindset. When I use this title, from envy to pride to collaboration, when some of the centers were established in some of the universities, I will not name names, but you will recognize them. At first, there could have been some resentment. Why would this center get more resources? Why would these centers be able to bypass procurement regulations? But very quickly, it was embraced institutional-wide, and we have seen a lot of pride in the achievement that you have accomplished and in the ability to work through with the other parts of the institution, even though they were not directly benefiting from the resources that the ACE centers received. So we have seen many examples of educational progress throughout the institution, not only within the ACE Center, where new programs in terms of content were established, where innovative pedagogy was adopted, but you were able to contaminate in a positive way, to be contagious in a very positive way with the rest of the institution. You have shared your ACE resources generously, we've seen centers where the internet that was accessible, the broadband that was available in the center was shared with the entire university. You have, as the capacity was built in the centers, this was shared generously throughout the institution, contributed to staff development, scientific conferences. You provided access to your new scientific infrastructure to colleagues and doctoral students throughout the institution. Generally speaking, we've seen a lot of capacity building. Following the example of the ACE itself, the entire institution has set up new units, for example, for internationalization, for entrepreneurship, for tech transfer. It's really impressive, the impact that you have had throughout the host institution. And of course, these centers have given greater international visibility to the host university, to the country, throughout Africa and beyond Africa. I can tell you that I've taken part in 2 regional conferences in the past 6 months, one in South Asia, one in Central Asia and Eastern Europe. And the ACEs were really, the positive experience was showcased there to these regions, because people have heard about the African centers of excellence in other parts of the world, and they're really eager to learn from your lesson. And just to summarize, I would say, the ACEs have really become a model of change, a driver of change, not only for the host universities, but in many cases for the entire higher education system. This is really a reason to celebrate, a cause for celebration. Now I finish with one of the big issues that is still a challenge: long-term sustainability. Progress has been uneven, and we have to recognize that collectively we may have been overtly optimistic in the way we have designed, and the way we have made the assumption that with one round of funding, or even 2 rounds, 10 years, that would be sufficient to allow the ACE to be created, to mature in a way that where they would generate sufficient resources to be self-sufficient over the long term. And perhaps there had been too much focus on the commercialization of research, thinking that that would be the magic wand that would give you the resources that will be sufficient, and expecting that you will have a rapid result. And this has happened in some centers. We should not oversee that. But is it enough? Was it realistic? I'm not sure. And in fact, international experience over the past 15 years, I've been observing the creation of new universities all over the world, and all the transformation of institutions. And experience shows that, to create from scratch a new university that's going to be successful, it takes at least 20 years. I'm thinking, for example, of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. That's a great success in East Asia, but it has taken 20 years. Or even one of your privileged partner, Polytechnique Lausanne, a great institution. But if we go back, before or 20 years ago, it was doing well, but it was not at the level that it has achieved after 15 years of transformation. So we have to step back and take these factors into consideration. So in terms of sustainability, again, great achievements. Small groups of centers have shown that they could become self-reliant, and they don't need that much the ACE funding anymore. So this is reason for celebration. But this is still the minority. You also are invested in becoming self-reliant, even though you have not achieved it, because you have invested and your host university is supporting you to continue the development of the centers. And you have shown, and remember the first table that I showed you, the results for revenue generation have exceeded the expectations. But still, many centers operate as project units. They are not really part of the university in terms of budgetings. They may have their administrative staff, but the academic staff there are just financed by the projects. So this is a big preoccupation. Only a handful of centers are part of scientific networks that are sufficiently strong to provide funding in the long term. And the reality of many of the countries in which you are hosted is that there is limited funding for higher education generally and for research specifically. So that's a major hurdle. And sometimes, because the centers have been eager, to generate resources that may have come at the expense of their core teaching or research missions. So these are some of the limitations that we have observed, and that represent a big challenge. How to move forward? We have to recognize that sustainability is a shared responsibility, and we all have to work together. So the ACEs themselves need to continue to scale up their resource diversification efforts. And here, the main two sources of income will be continuing education, short courses, and having more of a lifelong learning focus. Some of you are doing it, very well, but most of you still need to emphasize that further and to scale up your activities and to work on technology transfer and recognize that not everybody is going to be successful, will be able to commercialize research. Second, the host institution need to come in with more emphasis, with more resources. They need to provide you with fixed administrative positions, fixed academic positions. You cannot rely only on external funding. So ACEs have to become units in the structure, a regular unit in the structure of the host institution. And that means that you should get your share of the budget. And it's also very important for the scholarship, especially if you want to maintain the regional character of the centers. If you don't have funding to attract, to support master students, PhD students, it's going to be very difficult. We've seen it already in some cases to continue attracting regional students. And then the host institution itself has to work and be supported by the national government. Again, it's the Ministry of Finance working with Ministry of Higher Education or Ministry of Education need to recognize that the ACEs, these are your babies to be supported in the long term. That while we may recognize that some centers may not make it, the centers that have really shown great results cannot be allowed to fail because of the lack of resources. So national governments have to step in. And lastly, the donor community. We have to recognize that 5 years, 10 years may not be enough. And so long-term sustainable funding, if performance warrants wider support, longer support, we all have to come together, ACEs, host institutions, national governments, and the donor community. So as a matter of conclusion, we have to recognize ACE Impact has been a transformative program for higher education in your region. You can be very proud about what has been achieved. The program is on track to achieve its overall goals, despite the challenges, despite the delays in implementation. At the same time, we have identified many areas where there is room for improvement to continue executing core project activities. Sustainability remains a challenge. I've already made the points. As I mentioned, over the years, I've been observing success in emerging centers and universities all around the world. And these are some of the lessons that I have drawn from my work. It starts with leadership, inspiration, and vision, and that we have seen in many centers or in many host universities. Internationalization is an accelerating factor, and the core of the regional dimension of your centers goes in that direction. Being a niche institution, offering niche programs is an essential element, and by design, your centers are focusing on specific areas. Well done. Curriculum, pedagogical, and managerial innovation is part of long-term success. Some of you have done it very well, others are still struggling. You need to keep focusing on that. Strategic planning, benchmarking, It's part of the initiative. You need to do more of that and work on the long-term financial sustainability. We have to recognize the main challenges, COVID pandemic, delayed project launch in some countries, structural issues in your system. You need to focus on the scholarships for African students from the region. Otherwise, the regional dimension will be compromised. Some of your institutions, in some of the countries, we see rapid change in university leadership. That's not very helpful. You know your countries, you know where it's happening, but continuity. And this is not something you control, but you have to work with your ministers, with the national authorities. This is important. And in some countries, it's more difficult than others to modify the way university leaders are selected. Politics are part of the game, unfortunately, and we have to live with that. And you have to be very careful about gender equity. Just because we have made progress, it doesn't mean that we should stop there. We are seeing signs that gender equity might be compromised as your countries go through the digital and green transitions. These are the jobs of the future, and there is a risk that they will be given as a matter of priority to males. I did a study on gender equity in one of the ACE countries recently, and we realized that interviewing young ladies, especially in engineering, for example, that even though they get the training, they do not go to jobs in engineering. They go to banking, to insurance, because they are not made welcome in the new jobs in these areas. So this is another an area where you still need to work. I will finish by repeating something I have shared with you in previous occasions. Adequate governance is the key. Unfortunately, especially in public universities, we have so many constraints. We are asked to compete with other countries in the region. We are asked to compete with other regions in the world, but we have so many limitations that have to be removed. I've worked a lot in Latin America, and I've seen where public universities have so many obstacles that private universities develop much faster and become leaders in their countries. It's good to have a balanced system of public and private institutions, but your public institutions have a public goods element. You should not fail them as governments, as countries, and you should, of course, work on the long-term sustainability. My last suggestions: ACE should become the part of the research strategy of the host universities. You need to move from project mode to integration as regular units of universities in terms of academic positions, scholarships, regular budgets. Donor activities need to be aligned with the university's strategic plans. And we need to focus on the modernization of governments, providing institutional autonomy, especially in the Francophone countries. That has to do with human resources policies, financial management, and procurement. All the countries show that when the health emergency came, you were able to have much more flexible approaches to procurement, because it was a matter of death, life and death, to procure the vaccines, etc. Education is also a matter of life and death for the future of your countries. It's not about oil and natural resources, it's about knowledge. The ACEs are the forefront of developing knowledge for your countries. They must be fully supported. Over to you, Ekwa.
Can you hear me?
If you're speaking, I cannot hear you.
Okay, I'll try.
Hello? Can you hear me? Jamil, you can hear me, right?
Now I can hear you. Yes. Hi, Joshua.
All right. Okay, so we're going to try and catch up on time. I'm very, very behind. I think our opening took a while, and then the eating and the dancing also took time. So we'll just take a few questions and then hand it back to Jamil for the answers. Okay, so do we have mics? Okay, so I have one on the back. Any others? Any questions? There's two. That side. And so we'll start from you.
Yes, hello, Jamil. My name is Jürgen Wasser. I'm the managing director of the German accreditation agency ASIN, and we've been looking at 8 A centers. First of all, congrats on this very comprehensive analysis. I would like to make a couple of suggestions, perhaps like in view of sustainability. What I've seen in those 7 or 8 centers, there are lots of best practice examples. And I would, in a way, encourage, in a way, make some sort of a database of good practices so that other A centers can learn. I'll give you a very small detail. The World Bank was clever because in all the A centers I've seen, there was some sort of a grievance website where students could, in a way, actually give their grievances, which they normally would not do because, like in the African culture, you not address the elders or the professors. So there was one of those best practice examples, which I then import to Europe. So best practice is good. You mentioned all the important points, Jamil. I think if I had to single out one challenge, it would be the diversification of income. These A centers need to be, I say, financially independent because everything else follows out of that financial independence. When you talk about human resources, you have to pay your professors. If you don't have the funds, you cannot do it. So when we talk about financial independence, I've seen a couple of best practice things. And I think the two things I would single out, you mentioned one, Jamil, is invest in continuous education. That's an important source of income. When you think about like the short cycle courses, the potential to in a way export your degrees and your micro credentials to others. So that would be one suggestion. The other suggestion would be perhaps diversify your thinking of research. There's a strange emphasis in all these A centers who only focus on publications. There are other forms of income generating the resources. Publications will not generate money. But what will increase the funding is third-party funding. Invest in building up an administration which is good
in getting third-party funding, not only from governments, but also from industry. And if you, in a way, follow up on those good practices which you see in some of the centers, and you broaden it, learn from each other, I think then there's a good chance for sustainability. Other than that, I think, Jamil, you mentioned all the important points.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Manfredi Binet. I'm the WANIDA coordinator under the ACE partner project. So I think, thank you, Jamil, for your presentation. I think it has brought to light the fact that this financing brought improvement in training and research, but it also brought out the fact that some centers need about 20 years to really become independent. And at the end, it actually brought us here also about the importance of partnership, not only between these A's that have really done pretty well, but also these A's that are still struggling. So at the end, is your presentation not advocating for more financing for a more yes, and then also financing these partnerships? Thank you.
Any last question before?
Est-ce qu'on a une question, une dernière?
Parce qu'on a foi.
Avant que M. Diamel nous donne des éléments de réponse.
A very good presentation.
Une très bonne présentation.
I just want to ask a simple question. You talked about other donors coming in to fund the ACE project. I wanted to know to what extent can the World Bank lead this process, talk to other international funders, what are the multilaterals, the bilateral
cet aspect
funding that the World Bank is going to provide? What extent can the World Bank lead that process? Thank you.
Financement, parvenir à un niveau important de financement. Comment est-ce que la banque...
Jamil, do you want to take these first questions? Another person was more for comment.
So I didn't get the last one about the World Bank and the bilaterals.
The last one was about how the World Bank could work to lead the effort in bringing on board other donors.
Prendre le devant en termes de financement.
Well, maybe I'll take the last one, but perhaps you can speak. I cannot speak on behalf of the World Bank, but I think that we've already seen that partnership between the World Bank and the French Development Agency, AFD. I think that's a good sign. And you remember that I made the point that the donors should rally around the strategic plan of each university. When the university has its act together, when it has a well-thought strategic plan, so that we all work in the same direction. The first colleague from Germany mentioned the accreditation that has been carried out. I visited universities where we have also German centers of excellence or German finance centers of excellence. Were existing alongside World Bank finance centers of excellence. But the important thing is that the university where they were, I'm talking about University of Rwanda, for example, which has the largest number of ACEs, if I'm not mistaken, then there is an overall university strategy to leverage the contribution of these centers. Now, and let me make the link with the comment that the first speaker made. It's very important when you have good practices that these practices are encouraged. In some cases, universities try to get these resources back and the centers are not allowed to spend them or to keep them, or the financial management regulations are so strict that they don't have the flexibility to pay the professors or to provide scholarships for doctoral students. So it's we need to create an ecosystem that really encourages innovation and flexibility in the use of the resources. And I mean, and I think that the kind of meeting you're having right now in Abidjan is a response or illustrates what the colleague mentioned, is that this is a platform to share good practices. And of course, it should not be only when you meet every 6 months, but there should be other ways to exchange good practices so that centers within a country, within the same institution, within the same country, and across the countries can really learn from each other. And yes, not only focusing on publications. Publications are important. It's part of the research practice, but I agree that it has to go much beyond. And some of the centers are doing it in terms of technology transfer and commercialization of their research and trying to solve concrete problems from the country in their areas of expertise. We've seen it with the health centers, agriculture, environment, and again, there are very good practices that need to be supported and shared. Over to you, Ekwa.
Talked here about the HBCUs and bringing in companies, the private sector from the US to really fund strong partnerships between the ACEs and that. There's the EU aspects of it, and we are actually looking to go to Europe for another workshop next year. We'll talk about that later. So there are definitely efforts that we are making, and the good news is people are coming to us asking to partner with ACEs, which is excellent, which means that there's something that you're doing right, and we'll have to write on that. In the interest of time, I think I'll wrap up the session. There'll be opportunities to have deeper dive in this discussion as we talk about the ACE at 10 and what needs to be done at the national level for sustainability, what needs to be done at the university level for sustainability. And we are really grateful that we have vice chancellors here and their representatives here as well. It's not that the center leaders that are running with it. So thanks to those vice chancellors that made it here. So to wrap up, thanks so much, Jamil. You really presented to us some of the areas in which the centers are doing well and some of the challenges that remain, particularly the point about leaving the females behind in terms of green and digital skills, how there's been uneven progress, why there's importance for resource diversification, and post institutions and the role they can play, the role that national governments can also play, and then the donor community. And I think one key area is the fact that the ACE is a model of change. And if there's anything that we can take away from this session, I would like us to remember that whether it's at the institutional level or at the national level, we should see ACE as a model of change. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ekwa and Dr. Jamil. So another big round of applause to the crew. So we are now moving to our next session. I think this will be on ACE impact update. Some of the information will be linked to the impact evaluation. I think we keep on tracking the progress every 6 months. So at this point, I would like to invite our chairperson of the session, Professor Kwame. He is a project steering committee member for Togo. Join me in welcoming Professor Kwame to the podium. And then I would also like to invite the key speakers for this session. Dr. Quentin Depeche, Mrs. Adeline Ade, and Ms. Maud Twajo. Kindly join us at the podium. So I would like to hand over the session to Professor Kwame. He's going to take us through the objectives of the session and also introduce the key speakers.
Merci, Sylvia. Je vais prier les collègues de prendre le matériel parce que je vais parler de français. Bonjour, mesdames, messieurs, chers participants. Je voudrais vous souhaiter la cordiale bienvenue à cette session qui va nous permettre de faire un tour sur le projet CEA Impact. Je voudrais également saisir cette occasion pour dire merci au nom de nos États au gouvernement ivoirien pour les efforts faits pour accueillir nos délégations chaleureusement en terre ivoirienne. Je voudrais remercier la Banque mondiale, l'AAU, les leaders de centres d'excellence, bien avant les universités hautes, les leaders de centres d'excellence et leurs équipes, les experts qui accompagnent les centres d'excellence pour le travail qui est fait au quotidien, pour l'avancement justement des centres d'excellence. Et parlant de l'avancement des centres d'excellence, je voudrais inviter le panel que vous avez ici pour nous parler des progrès réalisés, mais également les changements constatés depuis les 6 derniers mois après notre réunion à Marrakech. Ceci dit, je vais donner la parole respectivement à Madame Sylvia. Ces 4 experts, vous les connaissez tous, je suis pas les gens qu'il faut encore présenter. Il s'agit de l'expert mondial de l'AAU, mais également de l'AAD, qui nous ont accompagnés depuis le début. Il s'agit justement de Madame Sylvia qui est responsable principal du projet à l'AAU. Elle est basée à Accra, elle a plus de 15 ans d'expérience dans l'enseignement supérieur en Afrique de l'Ouest, en Afrique centrale, mais également en Afrique de l'Est, sa région d'origine. Nous avons ensuite écouté le docteur Quentin Depeche, qui était également avec nous depuis le début. Il est expert principal dans l'enseignement supérieur à Paris. Il est chef d'équipe de l'AFD du projet CEA Impact. Ensuite, je donne la parole à Madame Adeline Ade, qui est spécialiste en suivi et évaluation à l'AAU. C'est une dame très expérimentée qui a plus de 20 ans d'expérience en gestion d'évaluation de programmes et de développement. Et enfin, nous allons clôturer la séance avec Madame Maud Twajo, qui est économiste en éducation pour la Banque mondiale. Elle est membre de l'équipe de la Banque mondiale pour les centres d'excellence d'Afrique pour l'impact au développement. Donc, à chacun de ces panélistes que nous avons en face de nous, je vais poser la même question. Avec tous, on va parler respectivement, nous en parler.
Il s'agit de demander depuis Marrakech, quelle a été les efforts faits par le centre d'excellence, quels sont les progrès, mais également quels sont les groupes de changement qui persistent, sur lesquels nous allons réfléchir au cours de cet atelier. Nous n'aurons pas beaucoup de temps, juste moins d'une heure pour évacuer cette question. Donc, je vais inviter Madame Sylvia à prendre la parole. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kwame. So I'll be presenting on the progress so far made for the past 6 months since Marrakesh. So as I present my slides, I'll be responding to that big question, Prof, you have presented to us. So I don't know, I think the slides. Let me see the slide. Okay. So I will highlight some of the key results, of course, at project development objective level, and my colleague Adeline and Maud will come in to provide specifics at country level and at center level. Then I'll also provide general updates on our regional facilitating work that we do with the centers, the capacity building activities we've provided for the past 6 months, the work that we've done with the national facilitating units, Ghana, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, and Gambia, working in collaboration, and then communication work that we've also managed for the past 6 months. And then what persisted most while we were in Morocco, social safeguards work, we were very behind in many ways. And then I'll also provide what we have achieved there. Then partnerships and brokering for sustainability. And finally, the challenges that we are dealing with at the moment. Yeah. in their programs with partners like Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana and then the DMU in UK. And we've also made progress in facilitating international and national accreditation of the programs. Of course, these are just selected 4 countries, but beyond the 4 countries, the other remaining countries are also having their national review meetings where they are also discussing the sustainability approaches. So at regional facilitating level as well, while we were in Morocco, some centers still had low earnings. So we had to come up with a strategy. How do we support these centers and making sure that at least by this workshop, their earnings should reflect at least higher figures? So we came up with a mechanism of monthly meetings and virtual meetings with countries like Djibouti and Gambia. I think we will all see the results as being presented by Adeline and Maud. There's a lot of significant progress from these two countries. They were behind. And then also we followed up with some of the countries like Niger. Of course, they've had some issues with political situation, but we've been working with them online just to see how they are surviving throughout this period, because it's not easy at this point when normally the also World Bank comes in with some of the key guidance on moving forward. So we've been linking with them just to understand how they are surviving and how the situation is affecting their program. And then for some of the ministries that we've worked with during the period, we were looking at the project sustainability. We were invited by GTEC, NUC, and Togo for their national review meetings. Of course, some we did not attend physically, but for those that we attended, we were able to discuss at least heads up on project sustainability. And that is why these countries have also taken measures in moving this agenda forward. We also had work in collaboration with the subject matter experts. Depending on their availability, they gave us their schedules. We were able to fulfill only 7 missions. We had scheduled for 23, targeted for countries that were not performing well. So the remaining 16 will be done between December up to February next year. So we are targeting to visit Djibouti, Gambia, Guinea, Niger, and Nigeria. So as mentioned also by Prof. Kwame, that we had challenges identified in Morocco. Part of the challenges we had related to procurement, social safeguards work. We were very behind. Many centers had not even submitted their ESMPs, and then capacity. We saw capacity deficits in most of our social safeguards officers. So we have provided at least specific trainings to social safeguards beyond. Of course, on this slide, I'm referring to Gambia because it was a special case they requested for support. But beyond Gambia, our social safeguards specialist has worked closely with all social safeguards, scheduling one-on-one clinics online to actually attend to most of the persisting issues in social safeguards and environment. And then also procurement, we still had a lot of contracts that were not being implemented within timelines. So our procurement specialists at AAU, in collaboration with bank procurement specialists, they've had schedules and meetings to support any bottlenecks that have been emerging in implementing the contracts. Because now the World Bank also sent communication that any work related to social safeguards and procurement must be concluded at least between January to June. So we are working within that time frame to ensure that these activities and the challenges we are facing in procurement and social safeguards are resolved before the time set by the bank. And then just on social safeguards, as some of the key highlights, we've had series of grievances coming to AAU, centers, students, and then other stakeholders submitting their grievances. and we've managed to resolve most of them. But for the period of 6 months from last June, we only had 3 grievances. Of course, these are ongoing. Students mainly complaining about stipends, delays in their allowance, and then maybe accommodation issues. So these are underway. We are resolving them, but we did not have as many grievances as we had in the past period. And then also for the grievance redress, we would like to appreciate all centers for taking steps in making sure that their grievance links are active on their websites. So 50 of their centers have already put their links are very functional. When we go to the websites, we are able to see that the grievance links are working. So we can tell that out of the 3, and yet we have 53 centers, I think we are really working towards making sure that we are all doing the right things. And then for ESMPs, I think this is a document that we are always supposed to submit. It's been a long story since the start of the project. And for the last reporting period, we only had 35 ESMPs that had been submitted. But today we are happy to say we have 47 in total that have been approved, and they've also been posted on the website. And then 6 of the centers do not need the ESMPs because they did not have any work on construction. So on partnerships at regional level, we do understand centers are having different partnerships at national and international level, but at AAU level as a regional facilitating unit, we also coordinate and connect centers to various partnerships. So we have an existing partnership, long-term partnership with IRD through the S partner. The presentation will be made by Quentin. So I will not emphasize much here because he will provide the details. And then as Ekwa mentioned, we are now working with the HBCUs, historically Black university colleges. So the plan is we are going to select at least 6 S's in January, mid-February thereabout, and they will travel to US. And these will be the S's from the S Impact here in West Africa, and some from the S2 in East and Southern Africa. And this presents us with an opportunity. We need to showcase the potential, what we have potentially that we can partner with the US officials, private sector in the US for extra funding. So we hope we can tap into extra funding if we pursue this. So the specific dates will be provided to the centers, and those centers that will be mapped for this activity will be also communicated in the coming weeks. And she also mentioned EQUA as part of the partnership. In person or in courses, and most of the refugees in West Africa are Francophone, and they are seeking, the UNHCR is seeking that we help to provide support, at least training at undergraduate and postgraduate level. So an information session for this one will also be organized to outline the key details. On communication, we've worked so hard, I think, to enhance visibility, is not at AAU level only, but also beyond, reaching out to individual centers to profile the centers and also give them opportunities for documentaries that they can use to market their centers. So we've been working with, at least so far, we've covered 5 countries out of the 11, and these centers have been given their short videos that they can use to market themselves. And we've also had like a number of articles being published by our communications team, focusing on technologies and innovations that are coming through the project. So we are hoping with our expanded reach, given AAU has an expanded reach of audience, these articles are really reaching out to diverse audiences. And we hope we can also use that to attract as many partners as possible. So newsletter articles are also provided. We launched one in June, and we are now working on another 6 months, which we will release in December. And we have AAU TV, and the part of the camera people we have here from the AAU TV. And the AAU TV has really helped us to also create a lot of impact in terms of visibility. Our satellite at AAU is now reaching out as many countries as, I think, beyond 40 in Africa. So that's also another opportunity to use our documentaries to reach out to many. So during the period, we also received some groundbreaking research happening, innovations that are being launched in different institutions. There were many, we just selected few. We received one from SEFTA, some agriculture innovations happening in SEFTA in terms of food processing and post-harvest, where they are using most of the indigenous to process various products. So they have a crop dryer, freezing dryer, and processing machines that they are using to make juices and many other products like biscuits from cassava and others. And then Senegal also has produced research outputs towards promoting green technology and climate change, and we've been profiling this. It's also in our newsletter, the most recent one. And finally, Djibouti, the students won an award, AUF hackathon on artificial intelligence. So there's really good work happening. We only selected few, but we acknowledge all the work that you are providing, you're doing. And in the next series of the ESA 10, these are the key technologies we'd like to profile for all the 53 centers. So our communications teams will be reaching out soon. And then also it's important for us whenever we see the centers that are being given awards and are being recognized for the good job they are doing in various ways. So for the period of 6 months, we've seen a number of centers, including Professor Galadanchi from ASEPAP. She was a speaker at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Goalkeepers 2023, and she was recognized for her contribution in maternal health. I think there's a very good video that has been circulated, and it's still in circulation. And then also we've had Professor Happy from SGID, who has also been promoted or conferred a distinguished professorship at SGID, and he also won an award recently. Then we have Professor Diabeti and Professor Friday. They also received awards and appointments. So for instance, Prof. Friday is now appointed as Secretary General for African Academic Sciences. And finally, we also recognize the promotion from University of Amadou Bello. Professor Lemon Bako has also been appointed as DVC. So we collect all this information because it's part of the work that we would like to see, the change that we want to see as we are working with the African Centers of Excellence. And then we have upcoming inaugural ceremonies. We've had, I think in the past, we've had three others, Professor Felix Abagalef, and then Professor Awandare, and then we have Professor Aheto's inaugural ceremony coming up soon. So congratulations to all the professors for the good work that you're doing. So in terms of the challenges, we have some of them, I think even Jamil mentioned them, but I'll just highlight few. Delays in procurement. We had a pilot of a certain initiative called CCOD, and we were supposed to have their studios well equipped by now. And this was in partnership with EPFL. So for now, I think we've had some global logistic challenges and we are still in negotiation with them and see how we are going to resolve. So the 6 centers that are participating will be informed on the status. And then we've also noticed, you know, with this sustainability and then also having lots of these research outputs to be communicated, most centers do not have budgets to communicate accordingly. So they are limited. They are not able to share what they can share. They are only limited to what they have. So I think there's need to have at least attention to resources for communication as we are engaging in the ESA 10 initiative. Financing agreement. And then we'll be conducting verifications, supporting the centers with their annual work plans between November to at least January. We should have the annual work plans with the support from the subject matter experts. They've been playing a very key role in supporting these annual work plans. And then we'll plan and organize their supervision missions to various centers, at least those that need a little bit of the push. And then we'll also organize capacity building for the centers on sustainability and operational support. Part of the work the subject matter experts will be doing with us in the various breakout sessions, we'll be looking at those key gaps that we need to fill in supporting your sustainability plans. And then centers completion for their procurement and environmental work. This has been communicated by the bank, I think, in an email, but we are also taking it up as our key priority to support the centers between January to June, making sure that we are within what is expected. And then graduate tracer study was launched, is yet to be launched, but we have concluded every work, including the tools, and students will be receiving the link very soon with support from the center leaders. Then support to the ACE thematic networks in collaboration with AFD, we will continue to do that. And finally, we plan to organize our 11th project steering committee and regional workshop in collaboration with the European Union. And this may be in May 2024, but the details will be provided later at the closing when Equia will be presenting overall next steps for the project. Thank you very much.
Bien. Merci à Sylvia pour nous avoir présenté les avancées, mais aussi les défis, les avancées au niveau régional, tout ce que l'AUA est en train de faire au niveau des pays, au niveau des centres. mais également des défis, et des défis qui reviennent toujours. Et je crois qu'au cours de cet atelier, on va devoir réfléchir sur ces défis. Je vais inviter Dr Delpech pour sa communication.
Bonjour à tout le monde. Je vais faire une présentation en fait des avancées, donc comme ça a été demandé depuis les 6 derniers mois sur le projet ACE Partner. Je vais beaucoup me focaliser pour pas prendre trop de temps parce qu'on est assez en retard sur ce qui a été évoqué par tous les intervenants et notamment par Jamil sur les points clés de l'évaluation, la question de la soutenabilité à long terme, à la fois des centres et aussi des réseaux, que ce soit les réseaux financés par ACE Partner, donc sur le financement de l'AFD, ou même les réseaux de l'AUA qui sont soutenus par l'AUA. Donc, pour rappel, le projet ACE Partner, c'est un projet donc, qui d'un montant de 6 millions d'euros. C'est une subvention de l'AFD avec une contribution aussi de l'IRD à hauteur de 700 000 euros. Et c'est un projet donc, c'est une plateforme en fait, qui implique des partenaires français, donc l'IRD, l'INRIA, mais aussi donc, les bailleurs, l'AFD, la Banque mondiale et aussi bien sûr l'AUA. Le projet, il est prévu sur une période de 4 années, donc de 2020 à février 2024, et il a permis donc de renforcer ou de structurer 4 réseaux thématiques donc qui sont organisés autour de centres d'excellence sur les activités minières, sur la gestion durable de l'eau, les sciences du numérique et les maladies infectieuses. Donc ces 4 réseaux, ils s'appuient donc sur des réseaux d'excellence. On peut passer à la slide suivante, qui rassemble 23 centres d'excellence. Donc, ces 23 centres d'excellence, on va le voir donc, sur la prochaine slide. Sur la prochaine slide, donc voilà, donc il y a 23 centres d'excellence qui sont impliqués. Donc, vous avez la liste, donc ça fait quand même une part importante, donc c'est à peu près la moitié des centres d'excellence qui sont impliqués dans le programme. Et on va voir aussi une carte qui permet de voir à la fois les centres et aussi la répartition géographique. Voilà, donc la répartition géographique, donc il y a 8 pays de la région qui sont concernés et on voit tous les centres qui sont impliqués dans ces réseaux. Donc, c'est des réseaux qui n'ont pas été simples à être mis en place dans la mesure où on a une approche donc, avec multidisciplinaire et aussi donc, francophone, anglophone. Mais donc, on va voir, il y a un certain nombre de résultats qui sont conséquents qui ont été déjà atteints. Donc, si on prend la slide suivante. Rappeler aussi la gouvernance du projet. Le projet, il s'appuie sur des centres d'excellence qui sont hôtes de coordonnateurs de réseau. Donc, il y a 4 coordonnateurs de réseau donc, qui sont ici aujourd'hui parmi vous et donc vous connaissez bien maintenant. Et donc, il y a 4 centres, donc le WACBIP, le 2IE, l'INPHB et le MITIC à l'Université Gaston Berger qui dans lesquels sont situés donc les coordonnateurs des réseaux, donc qui font l'animation de toute le volet recherche, activité, de formation de ces réseaux. Il y a des comités de pilotage et de suivi réguliers qui sont faits par les bailleurs, l'AUA, l'INRIA et l'IRD. Et donc, c'est toute cette mécanique qui a été mise en place en lien régulier, bien sûr, avec l'AUA. On va passer rapidement maintenant plutôt aux résultats qui ont été atteints dans le cadre du projet. Donc, au bout de près de 3 années et demie d'activité. C'est la prochaine slide. Donc, il y a eu plusieurs composantes du projet. Donc, si on parle des volets plutôt enseignement et recherche, on voit qu'il y a une activité surtout de soutien à des bourses de thèse, donc 44 boursiers. Il y a eu des activités de programmes de recherche communs entre les centres d'excellence. Pour rappel, c'était les centres d'excellence qui, lors de bootcamp, lors de réunions ensemble, ont fait des roadmaps qui ont permis d'établir quelles étaient leurs priorités de recherche communes. Et ça a permis donc d'avoir un certain nombre de financements de mobilité pour les chercheurs, pour les thésards, et aussi de réalisation d'articles de recherche communs entre les centres d'excellence. C'était un des points qui était souligné dans le cadre de l'évaluation du premier projet ACE, c'était les manques de collaboration entre les centres de recherche, alors même que l'objectif, c'est d'avoir des centres d'excellence qui aient une portée régionale. Donc, la coproduction régionale de recherche était un des objectifs du programme. Le projet a permis aussi de créer un certain nombre d'outils pour les chercheurs et pour les centres. Donc, il y a la formation de plus de 3500 personnes qui ont été formées, avec des cycles de formation sur sur la rédaction scientifique, sur les appels, la réponse à des appels d'offres, avec des MOOC qui ont été créés aussi, donc pour fournir ces outils, pour les mutualiser entre les centres. Toute une activité aussi à l'international, donc c'est un des sujets qui a été évoqué, notamment une question qui a été posée, dans quelle mesure les bailleurs peuvent servir de plateforme pour appuyer, pour aller chercher d'autres bailleurs de fonds, d'autres financeurs sur les centres d'excellence. Il y a une activité du réseau ACE Partner, donc en lien avec l'AU. On est déjà dans une situation où ils ont été atteints, voire dépassés pour la plupart. Et donc l'objectif vraiment maintenant du projet ACE Partner, c'est vraiment si on met la slide suivante, d'identifier les pistes de soutenabilité pour les réseaux. Donc ça, c'est l'étape suivante, donc qui a été évoquée à plusieurs reprises aussi par les autres speakers. Et donc l'objectif, c'est la slide suivante s'il vous plaît, ce serait justement de renforcer ces réseaux. Et donc là, l'objectif, c'est de lancer une évaluation. Donc, dans le cadre du projet, il y a une évaluation qui va être lancée dans les semaines qui viennent. Donc, ils mobiliseront les centres qui vont être sondés pour savoir quelle était la valeur ajoutée avérée des réseaux et de pouvoir avoir identifié les conditions pour autonomiser ces réseaux, de quel ancrage institutionnel, quelle source de financement et quelle activité à valeur ajoutée pour les réseaux. Donc, on en est à ce stade-là et donc vous serez mobilisés, les centres d'excellence qui participent au réseau, vous serez mobilisés dans le cadre de cette évaluation. Et sera aussi l'occasion dans les prochains jours, avec l'équipe de l'IRD et de l'INRIA, donc qui sont présents avec les coordonnateurs, de discuter aussi des pistes de pérennisation des réseaux. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Quentin. Alors, nous venons d'écouter Quentin sur l'état de santé des réseaux, des centres d'excellence en Afrique. Le message clé, c'est sur la gouvernance de ces centres, mais également des résultats clés en termes d'innovation, en termes de start-up créés, en termes de publication, mais surtout également en termes de synergie. Alors, à chaque fois que nous venons à des ateliers, le moment fatidique pour moi, en tout cas, je ne sais pas pour les autres, c'est quand Adeline va nous communiquer ses statistiques. Et donc, apprêtons-nous pour l'écouter.
So, good afternoon, everyone. And this time I need to gallop a bit, so I'll do that in English. Thank you. So roughly, we'll be taking a look at how we've been performing as a project, with special emphasis on the project development objectives, disbursement-linked status of the disbursement-linked indicators, and then we'll take a look at what's been happening with regards to verification of results, with some focus on a few of those details that were on the screen. So when you take a look at the graphic on the screen, to your left, we show what proportion of our PDOs or our project development objectives and intermediate results that have been achieved, represented by the green portion of the pie chart. We do have a larger portion, 57%, that we note are on track. And then we report that for 14% of the indicators, we are delayed with respect to achieving the targets. When you take a look at the information on the other side of the screen, for targets we've achieved, where we've achieved equal to or over 100%, we note DLI 4, DLI 5, and DLI 7. The specifics are provided: research, national program accreditation, external revenue, institutional self-evaluation. For those on targets, the student enrollment figures at all levels, taking into consideration the regional and female proportions. And then DLI 5 internships program self-evaluation. For those that are delayed, DLI 4 with specific reference to international program accreditation and milestones. So all that has to do with the civil works, so 4.3. And then DLI 5 entrepreneurship, we are quite behind on that. And then for DLI 7, which has to do with institutional impact, we note that we are pretty late on institutional accreditation and also on institutional impact, 7.5. Could you make the floating thing disappear, because it's getting in the way? I can't. No. Sorry about that. Can you control it from your end, please? So please go back, go back a couple of steps back. Back, s'il vous plaît. Voila. So sorry about that. That's roughly, we present here the global picture of how we are doing the PDO objectives. And so for each for each of the PDOs, we present the actual achievements, which are the figures that are in orange, and then we have the percentage of the target that we have met so far. So for student enrollment, we are at 83%. The graph that takes up the larger portion of the screen gives you some specifics on the breakdown of the enrollment. So we look at female enrollment, regional students, professional course students, master's, PhD, and then the overall student enrollment. The dark green portions of the graph show you what the actual achievements are. The lighter portions show you the targets. And so we see that in most of the cases, we are very close to our targets. Looking back up at the top of the screen, we have our external revenue, which is really important for the sustainability of the project. We are at 81% of the target, publication 71, program accreditation at various stages. The performance is very good for national accreditation and self and gap assessment for our programs. Institutional accreditation, while we are not there yet at the international level, for self and gap assessment, we are over 460%, which is very encouraging, especially given that most institutions were not going through the process prior to the projects. Then internships, we are at 74%, etc. Female enrollment, we are happy to report the percentage presented in blue represents what proportion of the total student enrollment is taken up by females. So we have 32%. I think that under the project, we're expecting to have 30% of total enrollment being female, and we've gone past the 30%. For regional enrollment also, this is a regional project. We are looking to establishing regional hubs. We are happy to report that we've achieved 95% of our targets, but total regional enrollment as a proportion of enrollment as a whole is at 31%. Thank you. Okay, so here we present the details for the first ACE impact. So the very same information, you have the indicators in the very first column, you have our verified results in the next column, then the project targets in the other column. Would really like to note here that a number of parameters or indices have changed. We have gone through project restructuring, and that has affected the total amounts of funds allocated to specific indicators. It has affected some unit costs for specific results, and then it has also affected our targets. So these targets are different from the targets that we saw when we were in Marrakesh. But the more important thing to note is the very last column, where we indicate whether we are on track, or whether we have achieved or we are delayed. And we are happy to report most of it, we are on track. At 3 levels, we have fully achieved, and even in an instance, exceeded the target. So that's the information for first ACE impact, which includes all projects in Burkina Faso, Djibouti, Ghana, Guinea, and Senegal. Then this is the situation for the second ACE impact that includes the other 6 countries under the project, including La Côte d'Ivoire, our host. So when you look at the very last column, we've achieved on a number of levels. Sorry. Specifically with regards to student enrollment, professional short courses, regional students, female students, national program accreditation, self-evaluation for programs, and then self-evaluation gap assessment at the institutional level. Next. Next. So quickly, we want to take a look at how much each center has achieved in terms of the funds allocated for each of the indicators. And so we have the first ACE impacts centers represented here. The countries are in the first column. I'm sorry, my sight is very bad and the thing is gone blurry. It's what? The screen is like that. Okay, Sava. So let's just continue, but we present here the percentages achieved so far per center and then per indicator. And then we've highlighted in red those areas where we are having challenges, where performance is below 50%. That is to say, under % of the total funds allocated for that specific indicator has been achieved so far. In the very last column, we note overall how much of the total funds allocated have been achieved based on the results that have been submitted and verified. And would like to note here that there are certain results that have been submitted specifically with regards to student enrollment, master's, PhD, bachelor's, internships, and research publications that are yet to be verified. So these figures you see here are going to change and would go higher once we have verified those results, and that's taking place between December and January of next year. So here we present the DLI achievements information again, but we give you 3 scenarios. When we met in Morocco, we had 2 scenarios. We had projections for when we have effected restructuring decisions. And then we had we had the situation where there were no restructuring decisions. So today we are presenting you with 3 scenarios: pre-restructuring as of June 2023, post-restructuring as of June 2023, and then post-restructuring as at October 2023, which is what you'll be receiving in the letters that we'll be sending you, God willing, sometime in November. And we find here the green bars that represent the current situation, the yellow bars that represent the June 23 situation with the restructuring applied, and then the orange bars representing the June 2023 situation without restructuring. We see clearly that with the restructuring applied, there's been a very significant improvement along all lines, and more so at the level of DLI 5, relevance of education, that includes revenue generated, internships, and entrepreneurship, and also at the level of student enrollment. So roughly, we just summarized a number of things regarding the first ACE impact performance, just to note that as a whole, first ACE impact is at 78% in terms of DLI achievement, which is 15 points up from June 2023. So that's a very good performance, strong performance under DLI 5, under DLI 3, and DLI 4. With the percentages indicated. We highlight some performance for specific indicators, noting for enrollment, for instance, at 100%, some centers in Burkina, Ghana, Senegal, etc. The information is on your screen. We would not want to waste too much time on that. But then there are areas where we need to accelerate our performance, specifically with regards to DLI 6, fiduciary management, and then institutional impact, DLI 7. So that does it for the first ACE impact. We want to take a quick look at second ACE impact. The same information here. You find out that the DLI 7 column has the most reds, if you like. And the very last column shows us the overall DLI percentage achieved per the centers for second ACE impact. We would want to jump to the next slide. Second ACE impact has the most number of centers, so there are two tables to represent. This is the situation when we look at the remainder of the countries and centers under the second ACE impact. We see that there's still a problem at the level of DLI 7, which has to do with institutional impact. Although there are a few centers that are doing quite well, we see ASHED has ACE-TEL, ACE-MFS, all in Nigeria having 76%. And on the previous slide, you find other centers also. I recall that the centers, one or two centers in La Côte d'Ivoire who are also doing very good under DLI 7. Can we please proceed? So like we did for first ACE impact, these are three scenarios for us. Let's focus on the yellow bars that represent the post-restructuring situation and the current situation. This is what will be reflected in the letters that we will be sending to you mid-November. So you find that there's been quite a bit of improvement. However, we note for student enrollment, we find that there's been a drop in the performance. This may be explained by either a drop in the activities, in the enrollment number of students enrolled, plus the fact that there's been restructuring, and in some instances, we have topped up the allocation for that specific indicator. So when the allocation goes up, naturally, the percentages would take a nosedive. Again, just some summary points. Altogether, our second ACE impact DLI achievement rate is at 64%, which is 12 points up from the situation we had in June 2023. Strong performance for student enrollment, 79. Also for relevance of education, DLI 5 at 76%. So performance highlights DLI 3, Benin, Nigeria, some centers in Côte d'Ivoire distinguishing themselves, yet a few more having over 90% in that, under that same indicator. For DLI 4, Nigeria, some Nigerian centers having 100%, others at 70% plus. Benin, Niger, Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire doing well at greater than 90% under DLI 5. DLI 7, we are happy to report, because there's a challenge there for most centers. Over 70%, those centers in Nigeria that are listed, and then a center in Côte d'Ivoire, which is Valopro. We are happy to report that some of these very high performance is being told by centers that are new and not necessarily renewed centers that came over from ACE 1. Areas to accelerate: DLI 4, DLI 6, and DLI 7. The specific areas are noted: quality of education, fiduciary management, institutional impact. So results verification. When we last met in Morocco, we presented this information, but at the time it was a projection. So here we present the actual. Just to note that we've put in extra effort trying to do verification, more rounds of verification, to ensure that the liquidity situation at the centers is improved, to ensure that there is money or funds to carry out the activities. And we'll be doing more rounds of verification as possible. So for 2023 round 1, which represents whatever came in the letters in June to you, this was the situation. We note on the left-hand side what specific results were targeted. We note when the letters were dispatched. The total earnings were approximately 22 million USD, and that was without restructuring. And then in the table, we note what each country earned, and then what each of the countries, and then what each of the projects, because we have the first and second ACE impact projects, what each of them earned. Next slide, please. So we go on to look at the letters we are currently preparing, and we have gone ahead to share the computations with the centers and have had discussions around these, and I've tried to effect any corrections that were necessary. So for now, what we have is as shown on the board. We have concentrated on the DLRs that are listed on the screen. Also to note that we have taken on board results that were previously verified, but for which we could not pay because at the time, some centers had run out of funds on specific lines. But with the restructuring, when the additional funds were added on, we took all those other results into consideration to the extent possible. So in as much as the extra funds could allow, we took those on board. And so when you receive the normal information we share in Excel with the letters, you would see that we've inserted comments to explain what outstanding funds there were and whether we've been able to cover them in full or partially. So this is where we are at now. We are looking to disbursing over 28 million USD. The proportion per first aid, second aid impact and per country are as shown in the table. Can we get along? The time is running out. Here, we would not want to bore you with the details. It's just a breakdown of each of the countries, each of the DLRs, how much money is going to each of the countries per the DLR. And we note, just take note of the very last row where we have the percentages. Is just to tell you that for this current round, the amount we are going to send out represents those percentages of the total funds allocated. And it's very encouraging to note that there are countries that are going to earn over 10% of the total funds allocated just in one round. Next one, please. So here, just a few things to share with you about results verification challenges. We would not want to go into the details, just to know that our challenge most of the time is with the quality of the data or the information that is submitted for the results, missing information, sending results using the wrong channels, posting results under the wrong periods. That will be all in summary. They will go into the details with our M&E officers in the M&E specific sessions. Next slide, please. And then we jump to our immediate next steps. So immediate next steps, the focus will be on two main things: the processing of results and verification. We decided to separate verification of 2.2 because that is a special matter. But we intend to work on processing results, compile results, submit results, especially for 5.3 and 7.5. Centers are encouraged to submit results. If you are not certain whether you have all that you need to submit, please get in touch with us and we'll help. When you take a look at the timelines, you see that there are many overlaps, which means that we'll be working in parallel. So many things going on in parallel. And so we would kindly ask that you bear with us and you send things in on time so that we are able to complete the processes and dispatch the verification letters by November 15. For verification of DLR 2.2, we expect to launch the process in April 2024, and we will be sharing details with you, but kindly start preparing towards that exercise. This is the results verification schedule. It's for information, so there's not much to say about it. We will discuss later in other sessions. On this note, thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Adeline. Je n'aurai pas de commentaires parce qu'il y a Maud qui vient. Après Maud, on peut faire commentaire. Ouais.
Merci, prof. Donc, peut-être que moi, je vais compléter un peu la présentation. Déjà, bonjour à tous. Je vais compléter la présentation d'Adeline par rapport à tout ce qui est performance dans le cadre du projet. Donc, comme on le sait tous, le projet est basé sur, c'est un projet basé sur les performances. Donc, les financements qu'on reçoit sont principalement basés sur les résultats qu'on réalise, que Adeline vient de présenter. Donc, on va parler un peu gestion de fonds, quels sont les fonds qui ont été reçus et qu'est-ce qui a déjà été décaissé et utilisé pour réaliser ces résultats qu'on vient de présenter là. OK, donc avant que la diapo, voilà. Donc ici, on va commencer avec le premier CE impact. On regarde ici, le premier indicateur, c'est le taux de décaissement au niveau de chaque pays. Et pour répondre, peut-être pour commencer, je vais répondre à la question de prof Kokou. À quel niveau on se situe par rapport à Marrakech? Donc, à Marrakech, on avait fait des projections et on avait prévu dans le cadre du premier CE impact d'avoir un taux de décaissement d'environ 63%. Et comme on peut le voir, on est actuellement de façon globale dans le cadre du projet, on a atteint les 65%. Donc, on peut se féliciter pour les efforts. On a pu atteindre nos objectifs et on a même dépassé légèrement. Maintenant, quand on regarde en termes de progression au niveau de chaque pays, il y a trois couleurs, donc trois graphes. Le premier graphe montre la situation actuelle en termes de décaissement. Donc, qu'est-ce qui a déjà été décaissé, qu'est-ce qui a déjà été reçu au jour d'aujourd'hui, les projections qu'on fait avec les vérifications qui sont actuellement en cours et les décaissements que vous allez recevoir très bientôt. Et d'ici la fin de l'année fiscale, donc d'ici juin 2024, à quel niveau on se situe, qu'est-ce qu'on essaie de voir comme projection, ce sur quoi on veut travailler. Donc, en bleu, on peut voir qu'on est actuellement, comme je le disais, à 65% de façon globale dans le cadre du projet. Et pour l'instant, on n'a que le Ghana qui est au-dessus de la moyenne du projet avec 75%, pardon. En termes de projection, donc d'ici la fin du mois de novembre, ce qu'on prévoit, c'est d'augmenter le taux de décaissement à environ 75%, donc une hausse d'environ 10%, ce qui va représenter 106 millions de décaissements de façon globale dans le cadre du projet. Et encore, avec cette projection-là, le Ghana se situera au-dessus de la moyenne du projet. Et par contre, on aura le se rapprocher un peu plus de la moyenne du projet avec environ 72. Ensuite, d'ici juin de l'année prochaine, on prévoit, c'est plutôt ambitieux, mais je pense qu'avec les progressions qu'on a fait par rapport à ce qu'on avait prévu à Marrakech, c'est fort probable qu'on puisse arriver à réaliser ces projections-là. Donc, on prévoit arriver à environ 87% au niveau du premier CE impact avec le Ghana qui va dépasser la moyenne, le Sénégal qui va rejoindre le groupe et se rapprocher plus de la moyenne du projet et le Burkina également. Donc, c'est les projections qu'on prévoit au cours des 6 prochains mois de mise en œuvre du projet pour le premier CE impact. Au niveau du deuxième CE impact, donc actuellement, la moyenne du projet, au niveau du deuxième CE impact, la moyenne du projet est actuellement à 50% et on a également aussi pu atteindre les projections qui avait été faite, je pense qu'on était à 50%, donc exact, avait été prévu et présenté à Marrakech. Et en termes de décaissement actuel, 85 millions ont déjà été décaissés de façon globale dans le cadre du projet. Donc, c'est ce qui représente ces 50%-là. Et en termes de réalisation, on a la Côte d'Ivoire et le Bénin qui sont déjà au-dessus de ces 50%. On peut voir que la Côte d'Ivoire est largement au-dessus avec, je pense, 69% déjà décaissés. En termes de projection, on prévoit d'ici fin novembre juste une augmentation de 3%. Donc, je pense qu'on essaie ici de vraiment encourager les centres. S'il y a des résultats encore que vous avez qui peuvent être vérifiés, qu'on pourra inclure dans les lettres qui seront émises d'ici là, n'hésitez pas à contacter l'équipe pour qu'on puisse rapidement vérifier et essayer de voir si on pourra essayer de voir ces prévisions-là à la hausse. Ensuite, d'ici la fin du mois de juin, donc d'ici la fin de l'année fiscale au niveau de la banque, ce qu'on prévoit, c'est d'augmenter le taux à environ 82%. Donc, c'est beaucoup plus ambitieux que ce qu'on a prévu pour le premier CE impact vu où on se situe déjà. Mais je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de progrès qui sont déjà faits. On a vu qu'on a beaucoup de résultats qu'on vérifie, surtout au niveau du 4.3, où avec les problèmes de passation de marché, il y avait beaucoup de blocages. Mais je pense que pratiquement 25% des décaissements et des allocations globales au niveau de chaque centre se situent au niveau de ce résultat. Donc, on espère que une fois que tout ça sera vérifié, on pourra vraiment avoir une hausse dans les décaissements qui sont prévus. On prévoit environ 150 millions qui seront décaissés de façon globale, donc soit 82 comme je l'ai dit. Et la Côte d'Ivoire, le Bénin resteront au-dessus de la moyenne. Le Niger va se rejoindre au groupe. Le Togo et le Nigeria sera également plus ou moins proche de la moyenne qui est prévue. Ensuite, le deuxième indicateur en termes de fonds, c'est l'utilisation de ces fonds-là. Donc, dans la réalisation de vos résultats, comment est-ce que vous avez utilisé les fonds que vous avez? Donc, en termes de progression, pour le premier sur impact, qui est le graphe, à gauche, on voit qu'on a eu quand même une augmentation d'environ 13% depuis Marrakech. Donc, on était à 42% et là, on est actuellement à 55% de fonds utilisés. Donc, sur ce que vous avez reçu et de façon globale, quand on regarde l'allocation de chaque centre, de façon globale, dans le premier sur impact, 55% de ces fonds-là sont déjà utilisés. Et quand on regarde de façon spécifique au niveau des pays, la Guinée, quand même eu une grande augmentation. Donc, on voit on est passé de 46 à 59. Et également au Ghana, où on était à 54 et on est passé à 66. Mais je tiens aussi à préciser que les autres pays, donc le Burkina, le Sénégal, même s'ils sont en dessous de la moyenne, on voit quand même qu'il y a eu des progressions depuis le dernier atelier. Au niveau du deuxième CA Impact, donc pareil, les tendances sont pareilles, un peu meilleures. Donc, on était à 25% et là, maintenant, on est à 41% de fonds utilisés. Et au niveau, je pense qu'on devrait quand même saluer les performances et les résultats au niveau du Nigeria. On était à 31%. On connaît tous un peu les difficultés qu'il y a eu dans le lancement pour la réception des premiers fonds. Donc, on est passé de 31% depuis Marrakech à 58%. Et aussi en Gambie, et je pense que ça revient à l'élément dont je parlais, 4.3. On a eu beaucoup de vérifications au niveau des infrastructures, donc je pense que c'est ce qui a boosté le taux de réalisation et d'utilisation des fonds. On est passé de 36 à 55%. Donc au Togo également, de 18, on a pratiquement doublé le taux d'utilisation des fonds. Donc il y a quand même une progression au niveau des centres, mais l'urgence ici, c'est le temps. Donc, on se rapproche de la fin du projet et dans certains, donc par exemple, le deuxième CA Impact, on est encore en dessous des 50%. Donc, c'est vrai que les progressions sont bonnes, mais on n'a plus assez de temps. On est vraiment pressé par le temps. Donc, il y a besoin ici d'accélérer un peu les activités. Les derniers slides présentent un peu de façon sont détaillés les taux de chaque centre. Donc, vous pouvez voir de votre côté à quel niveau vous vous situez. On a le SAMEF, par exemple, au Sénégal, qui a dépassé la moyenne, le PCMT, le 2IE, le Collège d'ingénierie. Donc, et au niveau du Ghana, par contre, on a pratiquement tous les centres qui ont dépassé la moyenne du projet, à l'exception de TREC. Et ensuite, au niveau du deuxième CA Impact, next please. Yeah. Donc, au niveau du deuxième CA Impact, on est avec les 41%. On a le CERSA, le CCBAD et le SMIA. Ce sont des centres renouvelés, donc je pense qu'ils ont un peu d'expérience, qui ont dépassé la moyenne. Il y a le STI en Gambie, donc à féliciter. C'est un nouveau centre, un centre émergent en plus. Et au niveau du Nigeria, pardon, il y a quand même, je pense, il y a 12 centres sur les 17 qui sont au-dessus de la moyenne et il y a que 5 centres qui sont en dessous de la moyenne. Donc, féliciter les centres qui sont bien au-dessus de la moyenne, mais vraiment encourager parce que le temps presse. Il faut vraiment qu'on essaie d'accélérer la mise en œuvre des activités. Merci, prof.
Merci, merci pour ces deux présentations. Alors, on peut retenir de ces deux présentations à la suite de la présentation de Sylvia et de Quentin que chaque centre peut se situer aujourd'hui en termes de taux de décaissement, en termes de taux d'utilisation, mais également en termes de progression que chaque centre doit opérer. Mais le gros défi, c'est la course contre le temps que nous devons tous engager. Alors, je vais plutôt laisser la parole à l'assistance pour poser des questions à nos quatre panélistes. qu'il convient d'applaudir, s'il vous plaît. Alors, la liste est ouverte. Des questions? Amen. Pas de questions. Mais bravo. Bravo. Ça suppose que tout est clair. Il n'y a pas d'inquiétude. L'évaluation d'Adeline est acceptée par tout le monde. C'est notre baromètre. Vous allez le voir en apartheid. OK. Bien. S'il n'y a pas de questions, si tout est clair, ben, il ne me reste qu'à vous dire merci et passer la parole à Sylvia. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Professor Koku Kwame, for helping us also save time. So I have few housekeeping announcements. The first one, the participants that are yet to receive their name tags because they could not register online, please do pass by the registration desk to take your tags I think they've been prepared. And then I also would like to take the opportunity on behalf of the World Bank and AAU AFD to recognize some of our guests here, invited guests. We have representatives from Morocco, following up on the partnership we had in June. So may I ask Professor Buchaibu just to stand up and wave? Okay, maybe he's temporarily out. And then we also have the accreditation agencies represented here, but the only agency we have in person is Asin Iring. I think he had already made some comments. So we welcome you to this event. Then I also would like to mention that the Ghana, we have a request from the Ghana Project Steering Committee member. He would like to meet all the Ghana centers here briefly as we depart for lunch. So kindly remain. He would like to have few words with the Ghana centers. So maybe in the next 10 minutes or so, he will be able to share the few words he has. And then we have an ambulance available in case we have any healthy related issues. Please feel free to reach out to our registration desk. The healthy services are available, and ambulance is also in-house here. And finally, lunch is going to be served in 3 places, given the space that we have. So the first space is just upstairs. It's a room that's just upstairs. We can see the curtains there. So you may have to use the corridor here to go upstairs. So the people who will be going in that room, we can only accommodate 100 guests upstairs. So we are suggesting that we have the center leaders and the subject matter experts to take their lunch from upstairs. And then we have the room here downstairs, and I think it can accommodate more participants. And here we'll be having the vice chancellors eating from downstairs. Once you get out of the main door here, I think it's the next door to your left. So vice chancellors, PSC members, focal points, World Bank, IRD, AFD, S partners, and all the local dignitaries that we have here from the Ministry of Education. So we'll all eat from the downstairs. And then all the center team members, we are invited to eat from the chapiteau. And the food is all the same from up, down, and out. And we are also going to use the same coupons. So once you get to the entrance of the restaurant, they'll give you a coupon. So kindly get to the space, get your seat. My colleagues will come and issue the coupons. So thank you very much, and see you after. Maybe we plan to come back by 2:30. So we strive to be back by 2:30. We hope we can catch up on time. Thank you very much and bon appetit. Hey, then now we are going to get down these steps.